Good morning, welcome to the Australian Early Finance Briefing for Thursday the 8th of October. My name's Nick here in Melbourne, starting with energy, and Australia's largest listed energy company, AGL, had their AGM yesterday, and there was some interesting shareholder antics going on. Firstly, there was about a 40% vote for rejection of the remuneration package. In addition to that, the more interesting one was a shareholder motion which was led by the Australasian Centre for Corporate Responsibility and co-filed with 100 other shareholders, and that was to close the Loy Yang A power plant here in Victoria earlier than expected. They still plan to leave it operating until the year 2048, in which case it will be over 60 years old. Yes, it's older than me, that power plant. And it's also Victoria's largest power plant, and combined with the co-located Loy Yang B generator, combined it's Australia's largest single source of CO2 emissions, uses very dirty brown coal to generate its electricity. So it was supported by BlackRock, the world's largest ETF manager, and a number of other shareholders, and it gained about 20.4% of the votes. But yeah, well, obviously not enough to get it up. A number of large superannuation funds which purport to be sort of pro-renewables voted against this motion, which sort of does suggest they're rather hypocritical in what they say and then what they do when they actually have to vote on things such as this. So it looks like we'll be having dirty brown coal burnt here in Victoria right through to 2048. Moving to the US now, and yesterday we had the Fed Chair Jerome Powell make a speech, and it appears to have fallen on deaf ears, i.e. the ears of Donald Trump. Basically, he was calling for more fiscal stimulus in the US. So he says, too little support would lead to a weak recovery, creating unnecessary hardship for households and businesses. By contrast, the risks of overdoing it seem for now to be smaller. Even if policy actions ultimately prove to be greater than needed, they will not go to waste. That was about 2 hours before Donald Trump then tweeted some of his messages saying no deal on the CARES 2 Stimulus Act. Moving to Europe now, and the European Union have given an extension to all the fund managers that comply with the European guidelines like UCITS funds, etc. They will now have more time to comply with the ESG reporting guidelines. They're still going to be implemented as per originally agreed in March next year. As we mentioned in this program a few weeks ago, the fund managers were lobbying for that deadline to be moved further into the future. But the EU have, in essence, yielded to their demands, and they now will not have to comply with these new guidelines till probably 2022, according to the Financial Times in London. And it's got the intention of these rules is to provide a sort of standardized, uniform reporting framework to compare companies with companies in terms of their ESG compliance. Certainly, it's very difficult at the moment to tell if one company is doing something good and one other company is doing something not quite as good. Cutting out the greenwashing will certainly be good for assuring investor certainty, which will ultimately, obviously, investor confidence will mean more capital flowing into ESG programs and companies. Moving to the markets now, and about 10 minutes after open, the S&P in the US is up about 1.6%. The Nasdaq up 1.8%. Now, the positive moves certainly aren't driven by Donald Trump ruling out a fiscal deal for the CARES 2 Act, but more by polling showing that Biden is increasingly likely to win the election in a month's time. So CNN released a poll a few hours ago showing that among likely voters, 57% say they'd back Biden versus 41% for Trump. That CNN poll was conducted entirely after the first debate and mostly after the president's coronavirus infection was made public. So confidence that the Democrats will be elected in the US will almost guarantee a huge round of fiscal stimulus to the economy, which will no doubt help markets. That's your update for Thursday. Have a great day.
This podcast is for investment professionals only and should not be relied upon by private investors. The podcast is provided for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial advice. The values of investments can go up or down, so you may get back less than you initially invest.